and welcome to The World Transformed. This program is your guide to an astounding future that lies ahead, one that will be here sooner than you think, and one that you have an important role to play in bringing about. At The World Transformed, we want to introduce you to what may be the greatest transformation of them all, the one that begins with considering and acting on the almost limitless possibilities that lie before us, and that ends somewhere beyond the reach of the human imagination. So, when does this amazing future begin? Well, today is the day. My name is Phil Bowermaster, and with me in the virtual studio is my co-author, co-futurist, and co-host, Stephen Gordon. Hello, Stephen.
Hey, Phil. How are you?
Well, I am super fantastic. How are you, my friend?
Man, I am great. We're here on a bonus show doing a kind of a last-minute kind of thing, and how could we not, though, have a show about the Falcon Heavy launch? I mean,
well, you know what this is like, in the movies when the kid's out in the street and he's going, extra, extra, right? That's what this is.
Exactly. This is our extra show.
We're doing an extra show because, we said it was coming, but then when it happened, it occurred to us that we had to do a show about it because we've already recorded, frankly, I'll just go ahead and admit, we've already recorded our Friday show, so we can't do justice to the topic then. So we got to talk about it now in real time because it's just that exciting, isn't it?
Absolutely. Phil, have you ever seen anything as close to sci-fi in real life in your life? I mean, we got. I guess we can kind of relive the whole thing a little bit. I suspect our audience would give us that.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't lived it yet, live it, folks. Watch the video. Yeah. It's so awesome. And I watched it with my kids, and, we were looking at the pictures today of Starman in his car, the video of him going past the Earth and heading on out into space, and the behind over the shoulder view with the dashboard with the "Don't Panic" message. And this is well done. Okay, this is a very well put together. In one sense, it's wrong to use these words, but I don't know what else to call it. Publicity stunt. No, it's not that. It's like a big mega piece of performance art that Elon Musk is doing. But on top of
that's what it is, and something
a huge technological achievement. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a huge technological achievement, but he made it beautiful at the same time. That's something that NASA never really got the hang of. I mean, they took us to the moon, and people were tired of watching by about the second or third time that we went. It was just, they managed to make it kind of boring, and you just don't feel that Elon Musk has that in him to be boring. The brilliance of the cross promotion for his car, right? And
yes,
it was funny. It was awesome, and he's showing off the spacesuit. That's an actual spacesuit. That's an actual
spacesuit that Starman is wearing. Actually, I assume that's all Starman is, right? It's just this kind of a stuffed.
That's right. He's a spacesuit and a mannequin is what he is. There is something stuffed inside there to keep the shape of the spacesuit, right?
Right.
But he's got his hand on the steering wheel, and of course his other arm's on the is on the window, and
he's just out for a drive.
He's cruising. Yeah. He's having a good time, right? It's awesome.
I had invited PJ Manny to join us because I know she was very psyched about this too. I saw her comments on it on Facebook, and one of the things that was very cool was the inclusion of music by David Bowie at the launch, which was
she's a
awesome.
Huge David Bowie fan, and I know that. She probably shed a tear over that, and many of us did. It was just, it was poignant, and it was a good moment.
Well, what's funny is in one Facebook thread she had written, he can call him Starman if he wants, but as far as I'm concerned, it's Major Tom. And I wrote a comment. I said, it's not really Major Tom unless he disappears. And then this morning we get this announcement, it looks like we've overshot. We're not going to the Mars orbit. We're going out into the asteroid belt. I'm like, okay, he's Major Tom. He's totally.
Yeah, the spaceship knows which way to go.
His spaceship knows the way to go. It's like once you fire that Tesla up, no telling where you're going to stop, right?
That's the way it goes. There, in addition to the tribute to David Bowie, it was also Douglas Adams, right? Don't Panic is straight.
Don't Panic is Douglas Adams, absolutely, yes. Yeah. And it seems like as I was listening to it and reading about it, there are numerous other references to things. I think there's not much missed by either Musk or the folks who were putting this event together. They were They were firing on all cylinders for this. And it's interesting that you say that about how it feels like science fiction come to life. I really do feel that Robert A. Heinlein could have written this in the 50s, you know? I mean, he almost did, right, with The Man Who Sold the Moon. There is so much of this that could have been written as a science fiction novel a few decades ago, and now we're living in it. And that is just the coolest thing. I think what Musk is doing, what he's valiantly fighting for, is the future that a lot of us thought we were going to get when we were kids and never panned out. And now a few years later, it's showing up. And
well, I've got to hand it to you.
There are hardly any words to convey how awesome that is. You know, that's just amazing.
Well, I've got to hand it to you, Phil, because you said something on the retirement of the space shuttle. I was just a little bit bummed, right? I mean, we're retreating even from low Earth orbit, Phil. This is terrible. And your response was, hey, you know, the next model is sitting there at NASA, and it's going to come from SpaceX, and it's going to be fine.
Yeah, and, in fact, I was just answering your question because you were like, well, where's the next space mission going to come from? I said, well, I'll tell you where. You got to go look at SpaceX. They're building the rockets, and here we are now doing things NASA hasn't tried to do in a while, and succeeding, which is incredible. I noticed a comment from somebody on Facebook. I saw that right before we started recording the show. They said that our space program is rapidly working its way back to where it was 50 years ago. And I'm like, I understand that sentiment, but I don't think that's true. I think that where we were 50 years ago was one thing, and where we're going now it's a very different place that we couldn't be if we hadn't done the things we did 50 years ago. I think he specifically meant going to the moon, right? Which we haven't done, but we're closing back in on it, because although the Falcon Heavy doesn't have the same thrust as the Saturn V, it's the next best thing to a Saturn V, and it is so much better of a system in so many ways than a Saturn V. I mean, one of the most exciting things for me about watching that launch yesterday, and it was just wonderful. Just wonderful watching the rocket in flight. It's just wonderful watching the parts fall away and watching the car flying through. I mean, all of that was cool. But I don't think I've seen anything in my life as cool as those two rockets landing at the same time, right? It's like, oh, well, here come the two parts, right? I mean, it's just the whole system is perfect. It is a well-designed, elegant system for putting heavy things into space. It's got the reusable elements of the space shuttle. It's got the huge thrust of the Saturn V. It's got all the modern technology, and it's got this visionary behind it who says we're going to go put people on Mars. So, I feel like we're in a completely new place in space that we've never been before.
Oh yeah. Well, and we shouldn't discount the effect of computation. We have very cheap and powerful computers by comparison to what we had in the 60s, and that's huge. You know, we can model this stuff. We can make more complicated rockets and engineer for a particular situation a lot more efficiently and a lot, I mean, we were, cutting every corner possible to get to the moon before the end of the 60s, and we barely managed it, but we did it, and so that's, but it was, talk about, that was a publicity stunt in a way. I mean, we had to beat the Russians to the moon, and we managed to do that, but it was not a sustainable program. We didn't go for a reason other than to beat the Russians, and that's not the model that's being pursued now. We're going for other reasons. And
absolutely. I think if we're not going to call Musk a publicity stunt, we shouldn't call Apollo a publicity stunt either. I feel like that phrase just is wrong. It was bigger than that. It was a front in the Cold War back then, and we won, by the way. So that's
okay.
That's
I'll
awesome.
go with that.
This is performance art, and it's like evolution in action. So, I mean, I'm as psyched as I am about the traditional space program. This is pretty cool. I got to say, this is pretty great. And we talked just on Monday. We talked about how important it is that the private sector is taking the lead now in moving into space, and you can just feel it. You can, in every aspect of what you see happening with that launch, you feel the difference.
I wanted to kind of bring in some thoughts from Brian Wang from the Next Big Future. We decided to do this an hour ago, Phil, and so we weren't able to get Brian on the show either. But he had so much to say on his blog, Next Big Future, that I thought we'd just kind of say, Brian, here, we're going to throw your ideas out here, and so one of the things he published was this is a game changer for the Defense Department. Okay, I mean we are seeing a technically and economically superior alternative. He says it can kill about $30 billion in waste, and it only cost $500 million to develop, versus a similar system that the U.S. Government's trying to put together, and it's spent $11 billion on.
Right.
Okay. That's what is that, like 20 times what was spent for Falcon Heavy, and no flights yet. There's going to be perhaps a flight in 2019 for this $11 billion system, and it won't get close to the SpaceX Heavy launch capability, and it won't be reusable.
Right.
So it costs 10 to 20 times more to fly that system. So, it's at some point, we may need to reevaluate, why we are spending that money when we can just contract it, right, to the private sector, and not necessarily just SpaceX. There are other companies too that are entering the sector, and
I think for that particular system, it's going to be hard for NASA to let go, but they'll be the ones who ultimately make the call, because think how much more you can do, right, with a $500 million rocket versus an $11 billion rocket. I mean,
talk about a budget magnifier. If you're interested in actually getting stuff done in space,
right?
You could take the same money and do 10 times as much stuff, 10 to 20 times as much stuff, and it just makes sense. I don't know, and not just them, but also defense contractors and just the whole group. The whole government should reevaluate where they're at on that. And I completely agree with Brian on that. It's pretty amazing how cheaply this was delivered, and government is just it's just not necessarily the best way to get something done cheaply. Sometimes it's the only way to get something done. And we were not going to the moon without a government project in the 60s.
Right. Well, the other thing is that's the key is who's managing the build, because ultimately it's always sourced out to contractors anyway. And the thing is, there is a process going on with the current, what's it called, Orion program, that is probably, there's massive redundancy built in. They probably had to go through multiple vendors. Each component is probably being made by a separate vendor. And it's all being done according to a playbook that NASA developed in the 60s and 70s. And I'm not criticizing that playbook. You don't have to criticize it. All I have to say is, look, there's obviously another way to do this. There is another way to approach this, and if you're going to buy your rocket from somebody else anyway, right?
Right.
Here's the guy to buy your rocket from, right? Because he's making them good and cheap. Yeah.
I'm going to be critical here, and you can dial me back, Phil, if you care to. But the whole thing is unimaginative. It looks like the shuttle without a shuttle on it. What's the least amount of creativity we can put into coming up with the next system? Let's do this. Just take the shuttle off. I know there's more to it than that. I realize that, but it just comes across as old school, and it looks and it suffers by comparison to the Falcon Heavy in every way.
Well, for one thing, it looks like it looks a lot like the Falcon Heavy. It's just not as cool, not as sleek. But the other thing is, it looks like, as the space shuttle was, as Apollo was, as everything that's happened with NASA has always been, it looks like somebody had a great idea and it got scaled way down, right?
Right.
And even scaled down, it's $11 billion. Now, what Elon Musk has done is he's taken a good idea and he's scaled it up, right? That's the other difference is the bureaucracy that always squeezes the creativity out and lands you with a committee-approved project that I'm sure would work, right? I'm sure it's a good rocket. There's no question about that. But it doesn't have the same juice, right? It doesn't have the same. It's not the result of the same kind of creative process as what it seems to me that Elon Musk is doing. So no, I would agree with you completely. I have not been a big fanboy of the Orion rocket. It has always seemed to me like too little, too late.
And here's another thing, Phil. It's if NASA were to have produced the Falcon Heavy, they would be sitting on that laurel for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just that's just government for you there. If they had produced something as awesome as that, that's where we would be from now on, basically. But I mean, Musk's company is moving on to the BFR next year, and he's not even going to bother to try to get the Falcon Heavy licensed for human travel. He's looking ahead to the BFR, and that's how he's going to send humans into space is big Falcon rocket, not the Falcon Heavy. And so he's it's a single stage.
So when do we see that launch? When does the big Falcon rocket launch?
He's talking about launching it next year.
That's so awesome. I mean,
if you just want to go to low Earth orbit, you can actually get to low Earth orbit single stage. That's never been done before.
Yeah.
And if you want to go further, you can just have a second stage and go pretty much where you want. You could go. You could launch with a second stage and get into orbit, and then actually refuel in orbit and go to Mars with it. Or you could go to the moon. Something a little more far-fetched is using it as a transportation vehicle to get people anywhere in the world in like 20 or 30 minutes. I don't think that's as likely. But I mean,
I don't know. You watched that launch yesterday. Wouldn't you like to ride on that thing, man?
Oh man, I'd sign up. But it's you got a bit of a noise issue with rocketry. I don't see it as something that could challenge aircraft travel too easily.
Yeah, well, perhaps not. I'll tell you what, though, if you could do just like the New York to Tokyo flights, right? Where you launch it from someplace outside the city in New York and you land someplace in the harbor in Tokyo, right? I don't know. Right. Maybe it would work. But it's true. It's not going to replace the commuter flight, puddle jumps and that kind of stuff. But maybe a few international routes actually could actually be done that way. Anyway, I'm at the point now where I don't rule anything out. I've kind of I live in this. It's Elon Musk's planet. We're just living on it. So if
exactly
if he says we're going to have commercial rocket flights, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe we will. Anybody else said it? I think, nah.
Yeah. But. And of course, Brian had so much more to say at his blog. So let me bring up the next story here. The Falcon Heavy proved the computer software for designing the big Falcon rocket. So he's using the same computer design package to produce the big Falcon rocket, and don't you know that he's feeling a little more confident after such a successful launch? Now, we should mention that it was not 100% perfect. I'd give it a 99% perfection on the launch because they did not recover the central stage. It crashed as they were trying to land it on the barge. But come on, I mean. No one else.
Pardon my enthusiasm earlier when I said it was perfect, but the two side ones landing, that was perfect, and that's just incredible.
I mean, simultaneously, what a thing of beauty that was. Well, I mean, within just a few seconds of that, the central stage hit that barge out there and kind of did a glancing blow, caused damage. There's a reason that barge is a drone barge, right? And kind of hit the ocean about 300 miles per hour. It only one or two of the engines relit for landing on the central Falcon. So I was just going to say I feel kind of bad even making a criticism of that because no one else even tries to do what he's doing there. So,
well, but we got to be honest though. I mean, let's we don't want to be just total fanboys. So yeah, it's like they lost the center stage, and you want that to work. And also they overshot. Right. I see that Musk has spun that as it's even better than we thought. But it's like it's also
we went
different someplace other than where you said, right? So I mean,
exactly. If you want to, if you're going to do the called shot, you can't. You can't say that say, hey, we even did better. Well, no.
Yeah, it went even better. I mean, when you got people up there, you got to get them to Mars. You can't say, hey, look, we sent them to the Asteroid Belt. That's even better.
That's not cool.
Right.
So.
But even with those lumps, it's still just it's so exciting, and it's just so much fun having this going on right now.
Right.
So
and let's count it. It was 17 successful Falcon landings before this launched. And then of course they landed at 18 and 19 and crashed 20, right? So that was
right.
That was they landed successfully 19 Falcons before they crashed. That's pretty great. Pretty great recovery record for those things. And you're trying to do something new here. So I'm inclined to give him a break on it, but we can't say it was 100% successful.
Right. And I think the thing is, he can try 22 times for every one time NASA can try with Orion. That's really the difference right there. I mean, that's the key. And he has had launches that have gone bad. He's had landings that have gone bad. He's had rockets blow up, and he's pushed on. And you know what this really is when you think about it? It's interesting when you start thinking about the difference between the NASA program and what SpaceX is doing. NASA program is like it's like traditional engineering, and SpaceX is like lean manufacturing, right? It's like agile software development. It's this new software-driven approach to things, and it lets you iterate quickly, and you come up with a minimum viable product. I'm sure they would never use the term minimum viable product or any language like that to describe a rocket that they're actually launching, but it's sort of that idea, right? That you get it, that you make a good enough solution.
We can't downplay. Yeah, we can't for a second bypass the reusable aspect of it. He put the numbers this way. He said you could crash a Cessna, or you could buy every seat on a 747. It'll cost about the same, provided you don't crash a 747, right? If you got a reusable 747, you can buy every seat for the price of crashing a Cessna.
Right.
And so, that tells you something about, how the reusability creates a capability to do things that you never could do otherwise. And so it's exciting, man. It's very exciting.
Very exciting stuff. Well, I'm glad we took some time to talk about it. Have we hit all the points we wanted to hit, or is there more to say?
I think we pretty much did. We hit. I think we hit it. And thanks a lot to Brian Wang and all he wrote at the. Brian.
Once again, the mystery guest, the ghost guest. You've heard of a guest host. We have a guest ghost.
He's been on the show many times, and we love the guy. We just couldn't get him on the show fast enough. So
we didn't put this together fast enough. So Brian, we'll have you back on again soon. We'll talk about this. I know you got a lot of other stuff, interesting stuff you're working on too. So we'll touch on all of that as well. PJ, also, we will have you back on again soon. I know you would have liked to have been here to talk about this, so we'll catch up again. But we had to do it. It was too exciting not to do it, and there it is, folks. Hope you enjoyed your bonus edition of World Transform. Guess what? We will be back again on Friday with a brand new show. Look forward to having you all with us then. Hey, Stephen, thanks a lot for putting this together today. This was
hey, no problem.
This was a lot of fun. And until next time, live to see it.